your TV in the background.
Okay.
All right, we up.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Fatherhood Think Tank. This is your weekly dose of fathers, giving you information, telling you how they feel, what their experiences is, how we operate as men, black fathers in the community and with our families. Tonight's topic, we're going to be touching on something. So I just want to give a little bit of a caution or a warning, because it may be a little bit sensitive. We're going to be talking about
That's not nice.
I'm sorry, I was getting a little feedback from. I'm sorry, none of y'all heard that, did y'all? Y'all didn't hear that, did y'all?
Nah, we heard it, sir.
You heard me repeat it twice?
I thought it was the AI first, but yes.
Oh, okay, no, okay. So I that's the video recording playing in the background. But I wanted to say before we get in this conversation, as people are listening, it could be triggering to someone who have made loss of prenatal through a prenatal death or maternal death. We're going to be talking about prenatal death and paternal death. This is a sensitive topic. I'm talking about loss of a child or even a mother. So I just wanted to give that warning of the sensitivity of the conversation we'll be having tonight. So be mindful of how we're going to talk about that for our viewers. And if you feel, whatever you feel, remember that counseling, you can always call counseling lines or call someone to talk about those types of depressing feelings of grief and loss. All right, so gentlemen, let's get into this and let's get right. I'm Ron Osborne Williams, my father. I am the maestro, the conductor, the Oz. I'll just say the Oz behind the curtain for the Fatherhood Think Tank. And I want to let our fathers introduce themselves as we get ready to have this interesting conversation tonight.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young ladies, 4 young men, and 1 granddaughter. So it's always a pleasure to be here. Good evening. My name is Donald Jones, a divorced father of 2, teenage daughter and a preteen son. Sitting here just relaxing right now, getting back into fatherhood because I got a break right now, so I can take this break and be back with my boys.
Hello, I'm Elder Thomas Alberry. I'm married, father of 2 adult, male and female, and I have 7 grands, 2 boys, 7 and 5 girls. Welcome.
And good afternoon, everyone. Andre Adams. I'm a father of 2 adult children, male and female, ages 21 and 26.
Good evening, Chad Walker, married father of 2.
And then I think Jay's coming into the room now.
All these fathers, man. It's good to have these new voices here, man, and new perspectives. So,
definitely.
Hey, Rod, if you can hear me, man, if you want to introduce yourself, you can go ahead.
All right, how y'all doing? My name is Rod Melvin, father of 1. That's about it.
Welcome, fam.
Okay, yes, welcome.
Thank you all.
So I just want to be very clear about, I'm going to read our topic again for tonight. topic of tonight's actual show is what is a father to do, maternal and prenatal death. And we brought this up, and it's interesting because the person that brought it up, and I'm about to jump on his head again. He come up with these topics, but then he don't show up for the topics. You know, I'm gonna let him live because he probably working hard, doing some work right now. You know how Jamaicans are. They got 20 jobs. Stereotype. My good brother Rohan. But he brought this
Hey,
topic.
question.
Yes, sir.
When we talking about maternal and prenatal, maternal, are we talking about the mother dying with doing childbirth or what?
Both that
Is
those are
that the
both
topic?
that are both talking about both of those. The mother dying
Both of those, yeah.
are the child dying.
Child,
And what are fathers and what are our thoughts of it as fathers? What happens? What do we feel about it?
Could you try again?
How are we and what are we doing to think about how we can be sensitive and mindful of these things, especially, you know, and I guess I might as well go ahead and jump into this because I was talking to a brother who was married to his wife. And what occurred was I was asking him how was his wife doing and how was things going. He was like, well, we separated. And I said, well, huh? Well, I mean, what happened? He said, she doesn't want, she is scared of having children. And that's a deal breaker for him. And when he said that was a deal breaker, I said, well, how can that be fixed? What can be done to maybe alter that and change that? And he said, nothing can be done. I'm already, in clear words, this is what he got married for, is to have a family and have a wife. And so he didn't want to, you know, if she's not going to have kids, she's scared to have kids. Not that I don't know, I don't know all the full details because, it's so much more than other than conversation you tell me. But he was saying he wants to have that. And he's going to find him he's going to move on from this relationship because it's kind of like, usually it was yes, we were going to do this, and now it's like, no, we're not going to do it. And I explained to him that, and one of my comments in my conversation with him was talking about, we don't think about this very much as Black men and as fathers. The deficits in healthcare, because not too many times do we be going to get healthcare done. We kind of just we brush it off, put some dirt on it, and keep it moving. But our women are always going into the healthcare profession, and when they're going there, one of the things that they are always finding and that's always coming up and that's affecting them is the idea that it is very poor healthcare for our Black women at the highest rate. So when you look at the maternal, the maternity rate, the maternal rate of our women and our women, it is very high. They are more likely to die in childbirth. They are more likely to die just in the medical care that they would get. We as men don't die that often because we ain't dying in the hospital. We dying on the street because we ain't went to the hospital. So we didn't even find out that and we don't even get the poor service because we ain't even come to get the poor service. But our women are there because they have to go. They have to check on their body. They have to go and get those checks and those inner body checks. I'm trying to be as PC as possible. Those inner body checks, things that affects them, and then they are at a higher risk of neglecting care by the medical profession. So, as I was speaking to him about that, he just blatantly told me that I want a family, and I'm going to look for a woman who wants to have a family, who wants to push out kids for me, so I can have a legacy. And I wanted to say, wow, man, whatever. But on the other end, I could 100% understand everything that he was saying, because this is a person who, in many instances, feel he did everything the right way. He did everything, as the playbook suggests that you do the plays. He didn't do any alterations. He got a job, 6 figures. got the wife, got married, courted her, did all these things, and now he's ready to move to that picket fence life. And she's saying, "Oh no, I don't think I want to have kids. I'm thinking more about my life than of the kids I would bring into the world." And so I left that at that, and that is, you know, I'm going to throw this pitch out here to you guys to see, you know, where you at and what you're thinking about. That is a great example of the scenario that we're kind of talking about, because the result of him wanting this could mean exactly that. It could mean that, and we know that large majority of women who have difficulties with childbirth have a lot of miscarriages, and they do have a lot of issues where they may even have stillborn children. The children are born and then die, you know, 2 or 3 days later because of, you know, the health that these mothers have. And then with that, we know that anytime that the body goes through a severe challenge, and so women go through this severe challenge, they could die anytime this could happen. Bringing life could also mean taking life. You know, because we know the stories, we see the stories all the time where the you know, here the father was, you know, even the story, Kevin Hart, Fatherhood. He was getting ready to be the father and marry his wife, and everything was going down, and they was ready to have the kids, and he was like a big kid himself. And then his wife died in childbirth, and he was just stuck with this kid, and he was, well, we 2 kids, what are we going to do? And he had to, you know, develop that. So I'm let me throw this out here and see what you guys are thinking, so I can get this stuff back to scenes working.
Well, I like a few schools of thought on it. One, women, when you talk about their health care or their care in general when it comes to having children, prenatal, Robert, I think all the prenatal falls on the side of the woman and not the side of the men. Being that as it may, I think women in general, not just particularly Black women, but especially Black women, but not limited to Black women, they have I'm gonna make this word up real quick. They face what they call systemic stressors. Now, what are systemic stressors? Systemic stressors is the fact that you face, if you're a Black woman, you got 2 systemic stressors going against you. You're Black and you're a woman. You understand? So you got racism coupled with sexism, and then you're still trying to give birth to a child. And here goes another question that we would like to ask. Just put a what they call it, you know, like a poll out there, to ask, what gender would women prefer to have? You understand? Will speak to the type of stressors that they're under. And so because they face those type of stressors every day, coupled with the fact that the science says that when a woman gives birth, be it Black, whatever the color may be, there's a 50-50 chance that both her and the child may die due to the traumatic circumstances of giving birth. Being that as it may, when you look at those different systemic stressors, then I think it's intuitive that men be educated on that. The fact that, like, listen, man, you know, did you think about the fact that your wife can die? And how important is it to compare what you want, you understand, to what I'm sure you don't want, because you don't want to just have the child without the wife. And do you want to notice a 50-50 chance that you can't have your child without the wife? And so I think those are some narratives that he didn't face. He just figured that, and just in our own arrogant privilege as men, because we do have that privilege as men, I'm doing the right thing. Oh, especially when we're doing the right thing. Oh, it's what because I am ready for it. But it seemed like he was pretty selfish, and he didn't take her into consideration. And the fact that the science does speak to the fact that she may end up giving her life for this child. So those are factors and surprises that can come up that can really alter the way he sees things and put him in a family position that he's not ready to be in if he's willing to divorce his wife simply on the fact that he can't have his way because he feels like the time is right to have his way. And so that's just my thoughts on it. But I'll let somebody else.
Yeah, I was going to say that you know, being that I was in the medical field and was privy to quite a few of deaths with babies, children, as well as mothers, and thing called preeclampsia. That's where mother's body goes into shock during childbirth. And the body goes into shock, and the mother can die from it. Also, there's what's called a breech birth, where instead of the head coming out first, the butt comes out first. And they call it a breech birth. And that can cause some problems too with the child. So there's many things that can happen, even to the point where you got your baby, you come home, right? And they have what they call sudden infant death or crib death. And there's a certain way you have to put the baby in the crib, and how they lay when you laying them down. But I think one thing I want to say was, as far as us men, we need to talk it out with our significant other, our wife, or whatever it may be, about having children. I mean, that should be made out clear before you go and say, well, I'm going to get married, and then, but no, talk it out, find out how we going to deal with this situation with as far as kids. And once the your significant other, your wife is pregnant, then you'll want to attend to some of the doctor's appointments, as well as going to where they have these classes, Lamon's classes, where you go in and you sit and you become a coach for your wife, going through the process. You're there with her and supporting her. But we as men, we need to really support our women.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Thoughts, feelings?
I have a few. Me personally, it is crazy because a lot of topics that we go through, I've experienced some of these more personally than ever. But this is something I experienced with my child having a crib death, my very first child. It was a high risk pregnancy. I did go through her doctor appointments and everything with her. But after my child was born, I got a chance to spend the first month with him. By month number 5, he had passed away because I was working in a whole nother city. And how I felt and how she felt, both of us felt incomplete. No, I didn't leave her right away. We actually stayed together about 2 or 3 years after that. It's just that the depression that we both suffered, we didn't know how bad it was. And at that time, we didn't seek counseling. I'll just say that out loud. I still have problems dealing with it when I see my son picture. I still have issues with the fact that I never got an opportunity to see my son actually grow up and be the age that he would be. He would have been 23 this year. I never got an opportunity to see that. And even with me dealing with my children now, after going through the divorce and everything, I'm very careful, even when they were younger. I didn't get any sleep after losing a child. After my daughter was born and my son, they were treated like super fragile. I wanted to put bubble wrap around them and make sure I was there for every waking moment, or even when they were asleep, that if anything happened when they stopped breathing, I was able to wake them up. So as I stated earlier, it's still difficult to deal with it now. I am a little bit better coping with it after having counseling, but that's something very difficult for anybody to deal with that's lost a child or children.
I think mostly in not just in our community, but just in America as a culture, that the loss of a child is taboo. Why? Because I think sometimes the loss of a child becomes a gray area where child mortality rates may get coupled with abortion. You see how that works?
Mhm.
And it takes away from the value of everyone's experience. And I'm be honest with you, most importantly, it takes away from the value of a child's life, period. And so sometimes, and you hear people saying, "Oh, you can have another one." I mean, just some of the ignorant stuff. So, and if you know society is ignorant, I mean, it's just not men in general that's ignorant. It's society as a whole that's ignorant, because you would even have women who should be empathetic to that would say, "So you just can have another one," because it was not their experience. And not that they may necessarily mean anything like that. I think it's the quickest way to try to give you some type of relief or something like that. And most time, out of ignorance, we just make things worse. And so I think and another thing about American culture that we want everything to happen quick. We want healing to happen quick. We want it to be over quick. We want our relationships to get to XYZ quick. And I think because of that, that unrealistic expectation is what put a lot of pressure on not just the man or the woman, but particularly bringing the child into the world with that level of anxiety, especially now. And so I think it can be further studies to say, okay, well, now that we have the area of social media and everything moving fast, does the level of anxiety get better for prenatal health of women and our children, or does it get worse? Did you understand? So what does the mortality rate goes up because of the high anxiety, or does it come down because of the technology? So that's another study they're probably doing or need to do, and other questions that need to be explored as well. So I totally understand. And again, my condolences to you, man. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Thank you.
Hey, you fellas, this is a consensus. Y'all can jump in anytime, man. You got some thoughts, share.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and I appreciate the conversation, honestly. But I think that most of us, if not all of us, would agree, through growth and life and experiences, that we would look at it differently than we did when we experienced it, perhaps. When I first met my wife, and understanding she was 8 years older than I was, so she was already almost 35. So we already know, to my 26 years ago, the technology wasn't there, and high risk pregnancies were 35. You got women having babies now, 45, 50, still high risk, but they're doing it more so ever now than they ever have. So I was 26. I didn't know what the hell, excuse my language, fibroids were. That was my first time experiencing that conversation. Didn't know, and then I had to go educate myself because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, as we were preparing to have children, and we did have the discussion, right? So some of us do have those discussions. But again, I still find myself unprepared. After experiencing 2 miscarriages, didn't know how to handle that. She wouldn't even allow me to even see what it was, right? That's just how much anxiety and fear she had. So, and then what do you do with that, right? So what do you do with that pain when you have a lack of understanding? Well, you have empathy because you're going through it, but now I'm double the age, and so I can honestly tell you, looking back on it, I wouldn't say that I failed. I made an attempt. I did go educate myself, but again, going back to all the points that have been made around taking care of ourselves, going to counseling, none of those things took place, right? So, and for various reasons, right? So we can talk about historical, going to counseling from our communities. We didn't do it then, and just beginning to do it now, right? So in the last 10 years. So all of those factors affected me. And, I never had the experience that he had, and so I empathize with him on that. But what do you do with that pain, right? Because he just said, he's gotten better, but that pain doesn't go away. So, and that pain does go away, right? So because you think about the future as you think about the past, what it would have been, right? So here, and I'm glad, brothers, that this is a safe space, because we talking about stuff that happened, when we were younger, and we still have these emotions and feelings, and still trying to wrap our head around some things that we've experienced. So I appreciate the conversation, and I don't have answers, right? I'm here in a learning space, but I share what I'm hearing. So thank you.
Let me say this, brother. I don't think we have any answers. This is my biggest thing for when we have these conversations that we under place, that we don't have answers per se, like people have answers. Like Bob Barker will have the answer to the question, right? But you're getting to hear our experience as fathers that may help you to better understand how the answer might operate.
And I appreciate that perspective, right? Because you're absolutely undoubtedly correct. There are no answers, right?
Right.
So
because everybody's situation is it could be so many unique situations. And that's what, one of the big things about us and about the think tank is that's why you fathers are so important, because your experience may not be my experience, but it may identify with me, just like
right.
It may identify for the people watching out in the audience to have a better understanding of how this is going on with their husband, how this is going on with themselves, because not too often are we in a space where we're able to really talk about topics,
right,
and then give our true, unsanctioned, unregulated feelings and beliefs about them, where we're not going to have to be shut up, not shut up, but just that we can just freely talk about it and feel comfortable, like when we talk about who FSU not being number 2 and being number 4. See how easy that conversation can happen? Nobody got no problems with us and this and that. But this conversation can sometimes, for people, feel uncomfortable for us to have. But these are the kind of conversations we really have to start getting into if we really want to change the circle for not just us, but for our next generation and the children and our children.
Amen. And so even when one of the brothers mentioned about people, I heard it with my second child. She was born 6 weeks early. And I had never experienced that. I mean, here she is, with all these tools. In fact, my mother couldn't go back to see her. She was like, I just can't go back to see her like that. But as a father, I mean, you have a duty, right? And so you work, well, you get through it. I don't know if you work through it, you just show up. And but I had never heard that term. And so, and then if fathers are put in positions where they have to make a decision, because sometimes it's the mother's life or the child's life, right?
Oh yeah, great point.
And then and so in some cases, like in my case, I got a phone call from the doctor. I was on my way home from work, and he said, I thought it was a joke, to be quite honest. And he told me, if you want to see your child being born, you got 30 minutes to get to this hospital. So I'm racing to the hospital, calling friends to pick up my son from daycare, et cetera, et cetera. I had a support system, thank God. Get to the hospital, 30 minutes later, my daughter's here and being whisked away. So, and even with the cesarean, right? Who knows what could have gone wrong with that? So all of these things, that we're experiencing for the first time as young fathers, it's overwhelming, because it's your first time you're having these experiences. And so I can identify what the brother's feelings and what's been said thus far. So again, thank you for listening.
Hey, Andre, but you said something, and I didn't want it to get glossed over. You said even with the cesarean, the C-section. That what you said? And then we don't want that to get over, because that's another factor. The C-section is when they can't give birth, vaginal birth, so they have to actually cut the woman in the pelvis area to bring the child out through the stomach, or through the pelvis area. And so that's another surgery within itself. And so I think it's so many, and we talking about answers here, getting answers. I'm like, no, this particular forum is a collaboration of awareness, and we build answers with the awareness that we have. So with that, I can empathize, because of my daughter. She's in the room right now. She was born, and I'm just gonna give you my experience. She was born probably at 5 months or something, right? like on the miracle baby. She might have been like smaller than my palm, the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
I can actually put her in the right. She's a preemie, correct? But one of those like complete preemies, like just a preemie.
Preemie.
So she had to stay in the hospital for an additional 3 to 4 months after being born. When her mom said she was, because you think I got 7 kids. Let me clear the 7 up. I got 3. My wife will blended family, so she has her 3. I have my 4. Out of 4 kids, I've only seen one of them born, but then I didn't see her being born, and here's why. Because she was so premature, her mom said she was coming. The doctor and me said, the doctor said no, so of course I'm like, she the doctor, so she know. So I'm like, listen, the doctor say ain't nothing coming. And this is the thing, because sometimes we could value the person's profession over the actual person experience. Here's a woman who know her body, know what's going on with her body. And what did I do? I sided with the doctor. And just long story short, me and the doctor was wrong. She did come. And so what made this really high risk is because now we didn't have no oxygen tank. We had no medical intervention to actually save my daughter. And so when they started rushing her, and they had to rush her from one floor to another, which means you have to wait for the elevator, get her downstairs, and now you're talking about the lack of oxygen and blah, blah, blah. Me being the man that I am and having the privilege that I am, I do as a man, I don't have to really go through none of this stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'll see y'all when it's over. And I went home. Being a man that, I'm just gonna be blunt with you. Being a man that had several abortions and stuff like that, I think I was just culturally conditioned to lose a child, especially one I don't know. And so with that, and I'm gonna have the courage to say that because that speaks to the and I don't want to say selfishness, but it's selfishness, yeah, because immaturity and selfishness, they go hand in hand. They're like cousins. And so that speaks to the immaturity and selfishness that I had to learn that I wasn't worthy to be their father anyway. You understand? Some things you have to come to grips with, that you have to say, you know what, maybe what I'm saying and not saying at the same time is, I don't think I'm worthy of nobody's child, especially my own. You know, so I would take the option of the abortion became more valuable than the birth. You understand? And I had to have a serious reconditioning to understand and have the 7 children that I have today, to really value them like they deserve to be valued. And I'm thinking, if you're not gonna value a child like that you should value them, then you really don't deserve that. And that's the lesson that I have to learn. That's the grips I have to come to. I didn't know, and you know me, I don't mind my embarrassment, your empowerment, mind putting myself out there at any time. So that was just my experience.
Yeah, I think to Lightburn's point, for sure, I experienced my first abortion at, I think I was 16. And I was furious because I had no say in it, you know. So I'm thinking like, well, hell, I'm half the parent, and you're telling me that you're going to have an abortion and that's it. So I'm immature and I'm selfish. And then now that I think about it, here I am 40 years old, like, you're a kid trying to raise a kid, coming from a broken family that has nothing already. So what you bringing this kid into? You know what I mean? And not to mention the toll that it'll take on a 16-year, well, hell, she was 15, because she was a year younger than me, a 15-year-old girl's body. And we don't think about that until, like, I've seen my son being born. And I promise you, when I saw him be born, I didn't want to touch a female for 3 months. When I witnessed that with my own eyes, I didn't want to touch a female for 3 months, man. I was scared straight. And then my daughter came, and this is what really, like, just gave me some type of appreciation for my wife, man. My daughter was born, I think, like 5.5 months, 1.5 pounds. You know, the doctor told her that I guess her uterus was thinning out. So she was on bed rest for the whole pregnancy. And he also told her, like, you know, make this your last child. because your son was born 4 weeks early, your daughter's born almost 3.5 months early. The next child, you're not gonna be able to carry that child for probably 3 months. And you know, she stood in there like a soldier, man. She had the baby, and me and her back and forth at the hospital, kangarooing and all this other stuff. And it just gave me a deeper appreciation for not just her as being my wife, but for any woman who, you know, actually go through that. Because I say, if I was a woman, ain't no way we have to go the surrogate route. Ain't no way I'm going through that. You got to stop drinking. If you do indulge in other stuff, you got to stop all of that cold turkey. Then you go and you do all these different checkups, and they so invasive, man. I don't think I could do it. I know I couldn't do it as a woman, man. So that gave me a deeper appreciation of every woman.
I love to hear
And
that.
usually when you have a cesarean birth, the next one is going to be also cesarean birth, because that wound is there. You can't, the female will not be able to do a vaginal birth because of the wall, the abdominal wall, and hasn't been cut.
But let me ask you this question. So when they developed the cesarean cut, and yes, it was an advancement. There's no doubt about it. It was an advancement. But when we look at the number of cesarean births that are being performed, and then we lay it on top of the number of cesarean births that are being performed on Black women, the number is even higher. And so, from my perspective, I'm not saying let's get rid of the technology, but what's the benefit, if you will, not necessarily to the mother, because I'm sure in many instances it saves her life, but technology, when it's developed, is not only developed to benefit us, it's benefit to those who are going to utilize it as well. So what's the benefit to the medical profession when they do that, right? When they use cesarean birth over vaginal birth? And I'm sure it saves them time and money.
I think so. One of my son had my first son's mother had a cesarean birth. I think it was a high, I guess a risk, whether it was a risk to her life, but I think it was more so a risk to the child life. And so it could have been a cord wrapped around, like the umbilical cord wrapped around the child's neck. The child may have been positioned wrong when he said, like, there's a breech baby. And I think most of the time for those breech kids, if they can't, and I watch a lot of, TV, but so it seems like if they can't readjust the child, turn them around to get them out here, then I think that was the main purpose of the cesarean birth, to try to reduce the mortality rate of that particular outcome when they can't rescue the breech baby through the traditional way. That's what I think. I'm not sure, but we can always Google it.
Yeah, well, a part, and I know that Gene is on here. I don't know if he's able to communicate. I know he can definitely speak to this in the higher, like Elder Thomas at that higher level, because that's Gene as a nurse, that Gene's area expertise. Just also, I want us to really think about the other aspects of all of this that becomes the social emotional, the self-esteem, the body morphization that happens. And so often that leads us to the postpartum that many people as men, we don't think shit about. We think that this goddamn lady getting on my goddamn nerves for, I don't know why. What is wrong with her? She doing everything to irk me, right? Because we don't know about postpartum. Sometimes the research shows us that our own women don't know about postpartum. So here we are with a new baby, thinking we're gonna, first, sometimes we don't have a very tight relationship. the relationship is tight because we having this baby, we decided we're gonna make this work out. And here's something that continues to get in between us, and it's the postpartum. And if we know the postpartum, we as the men will act different, we'll do different, we'll have a lot more patience, a lot more tolerance, and we will say, is this something I did, or is this the postpartum? Because that's a more clearer conversation you can have. Because what happens, and I've seen it with so many, especially young fathers who didn't plan on they might have been initially non-consensual fathers, but now they decided that they're going to take on the role and be this father. They're going to put on their big boy drawers, and they're going to get an apartment, they're going to get a job, they're going to do all these things, but they haven't really spent the time with the mother to give her what she needs. Because you don't really need to do much sometimes for the child. You can do stuff for the child, but the mother is the one really going to do a lot of that stuff in the early stages. So what is your job? Not only just after birth, but during the birth time,
right?
Making sure she is safe, she is protected. If she got cousins, aunties, mama, all these people coming around, you be the buffer to that.
Right.
People don't call. Buffer. You can just talk to me. I'll tell you what's going on with her. What's happening? Okay, yeah. Because that's protecting her. And when she know, and I think that when women know that we are there for them like that, I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of not being there like that because I was a non-consensual father. I didn't want to have a child with this woman. This is not my doing. So in my errors of my ways, as intelligent and educated as I was, I ultimately blocked myself from this person because I felt like I was being made to do something I didn't want to do. And probably, maybe if I would have, as I know now, because people challenge me all the time about how I'm up here talking on this program when my relationship with my child's mother and me is not great. Sometimes I don't get to see my child. How can I? And I'm not here to teach anybody. I'm here to cope with it myself through this program, just like everybody else. I hope they're coming to do. I'm not no guru. I'm a father who suffers because I maybe didn't do things in the right way with a person because of how I felt. Now, I never even, and I'm gonna tell you, I never even thought in a million years, that the child could have died, the mama could have died. When my child was born, I was on a cruise with my girlfriend. Yeah, you heard? When my child was born, I was on a cruise with my girlfriend.
Well, thanks for making me feel better.
because and I'll say this to say I had planned to be all the things when my child was going to be born and be there. She's supposed to be born on the 14th. She came on the 3rd. I didn't know that, and I didn't live the same place, so I was scheduling to be in the place where the baby was born at a certain time, and that was going to pop off. And the week before, I was going to go and enjoy myself and make sure I don't make another one.
I was in there with both of my when both of my kids were born. My son was first. My wife and I got pregnant in Texas. I was in the Army at the time, and we moved. We were shipped to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I was there. I actually saw, been able to hold his head, and my son was coming out, and the doctor was there with, and also with my daughter. I was working at North Broward, and I got the call, and she was born at Holy Cross. Man, I flew down 95 to get the Holy Cross. I got there just as the as my wife started pushing. And again, I was there to kind of hold her head a little bit and see my daughter being born. The thing I want to say, as we as men, that's why I say we need to go through these appointments and things that your significant other, your wife, are going to, because that way you learn some things about the postpartum part of it. You learn things about what the wife may be feeling and going through, and how you can support her and be there to supporting her. Even after the baby is born. You know, there may be times when you have to get up and maybe feed the baby. You know, she may be tired, and she needs to get some rest herself, so she can be more active and functional for the babies. And I was there for her most of the time.
Well, I can tell you this. Now that I look at it in hindsight, the mother of my first child, she must was experiencing some postpartum as well. And I think the danger in that, because we always think the danger of postpartum is just limited to a mother hurting a child. I'm like, no, it's unlimited to her hurting your ass so she can get to you.
Right. And like boy, this is so important what we're saying.
Right.
I mean, this is supposed to be about maternal death and prenatal death. But I think when we get an opportunity to really educate people on something that's important like this, this is another factor of what support mothers need from us as fathers. And that postpartum, like you said, we have an idea that it's just something all them women just got a problem afterwards. No, listen, their whole biological chemical makeup has been topsy-turvy in having this baby. And then now they're trying to come down off of this, biological chemical change and get back to, and you might not know this and we might not listen. They always say, I want to get back to where I was. But then as they start trying to get back, the stretch marks on their stomach ain't going nowhere. That's a strike for them. Their breasts are so big and tight. We might like it, but their breasts so big and tight, and it feels uncomfortable. Their body, is not the way they want, and they're going through the body moving. We forget that the organs, the inner organs, move around, have to be moved because the baby is in that area. We don't think we just saying, oh, let me rub that stomach and kiss that belly, my baby inside. That's all we think about. That's all. I'm gonna be a papa. Give me a cigar.
But Ron, I mean, to interrupt, but my point was
also.
And when you spoke about something, Ron, you said that you was on the cruise. Here you are, you having a kid. Kid has a mother, but you was on the cruise with your girlfriend, which is similar to my situation. I'm the mother of my first child. That mother still have that affection for you, and so naturally, what you just said, everything she was going through, we didn't factor it in because you understand we still have a right to be in another relationship, even though we're having a child from another relationship. And so back to the postpartum, what I meant by that was because, and you when you're in your privilege and you got your little arrogance going on, you just think I'm me. So as long as I'm me, I'm always be safe. So when I just, you're back and forward, and I'm thinking I'm gonna just go and sleep with her, and sure enough, I did. Slept with her, and then I fell asleep. And woke up with a knife through my throat. And just to know that postpartum, and yes, postpartum can be the blame for that, because when you said they go through a lot of stuff, but I'm like, what they're going through is a biological trauma that we could never understand. Because for the most part, nothing after all that happened, nothing really changed with me. And I could just move on and start my whole scenario over and leave her in that traumatic situation as a mother. So that's something I had to grow up and learn. That's something that I had to really come to grips with. That's something I have to continuously apologize for. That's something that I had to actually learn how to extend tolerance for. Even when I thought she was unreasonable, she could never be more unreasonable than I was when she had my son. So I give kudos to her and just God for just.
And also, you know, I just want to say this real quick, that you're talking about a 6 pound, 8 pound, some even 10, 11 pound person coming out of her vagina, stretching it, you know, that, and even dealing with that. Sometimes the wife, I mean, the woman don't feel like, hey, will I ever be able to? Will it go down, and will I be able to feel what I felt before? All this is going through their head. But you're talking about 8 pounds going through the vagina and out.
Hey, Ron, we feel like we got a woman on here. I hope she can give us some expertise on this thing.
Well, I seen that she came,
please,
and you
let
know,
her chime in.
And since we are on the live show, we always, if we get out a woman who come on here, we would love to be able to get her to chime in, so you can let go of your feminist hat that you use very strong in the group. You know, you keep us honest. But if we got real testosterone here tonight, we can see if she has something to say, or maybe she just here to listen. I don't want to put anybody on the spot and what have you.
Good evening, fellas. I am here to listen. I actually just joined, so I'm not really clear on what the topic is, but if there's at a point that I can chime in, I definitely will. I don't have a fear of that. Y'all don't scare me like that. So I'm trying to catch up because I'm a little late to the show.
All right, great. So let's I know we kind of went away from the maternal and prenatal death and kind of went on more the kids being here and the death that we might get. See how we always bring stuff back to us? We done left the kid, the dead, the passed away child and wife, and now we worrying about us getting killed by the mother of our child. We sometimes we have a way to do that because I think it's self-preservation. But I wanted to bring this topic to us, and the reason why the title was what does a father do? Because I think Lightborn brought it up earlier now, and I really want to hear from each of the fathers about. And I know you say, well, I haven't been in this situation, but I want you to think about this very long and hard. What are you going to do? What would you do? The scenario is you are having your first child with your wife, or your girlfriend, or your child's mother, or your child's mother, and a doctor comes to you and says, one of them not gonna make it, but you have to make a decision which one not gonna make it. Don't get tight mouth now, brothers. This the question, because I think that it is and the reason why I'm throwing it to the crowd and throwing it to us this way, because I think it will benefit people who are listening to this, right? Who are listening to this and watching this, get a mindset of what fathers may think about and may do in these situations. Because we got about 8 different fathers on here. Yeah. And then we also got a mother on here. So she probably, school us on some of the stuff too. So go ahead, the father. What we got to say? And
I want to say that I had a nephew that his wife was to give birth, and then unfortunately that she wasn't feeling the baby moving anymore, and it ended up being a stillbirth. I mean, the baby was born, but the baby was dead. But the mother and the father were there, and they were able to hold the stillborn baby. And we had a funeral for the little guy, and they both went to counseling. And the father of my brother, who was a pastor, talked with them along with, and his mother was a nurse. My nephew, mom and dad, a pastor and a nurse. So they talked with them, and along with counseling, got them through it. And 2 years later, they had had a baby born, another boy, but he was fine. There was no problems with the birth, but it's hard. It's hard to deal with that death that you waited so long and wanting. You're excited about it, and then you're faced with the mother dying. Like you said, the mother dying or the child dying.
Well, Elder Thomas, you bring up a scenario, and one of the reasons why I really definitely wanted to, hear from all the fathers, because you bring up one scenario of someone who more than likely in the case has planned to have this baby with this person. They've been married. They love their partner. A lot of these things, but that's not. I mean, everybody having babies, that ain't the situation. So I mean, right. I don't mean this. And listen, man, I don't want to sound crass, but some people might be saying, yeah, let's let the baby live.
You're talking about when you're talking about a human being, it's a matter of choosing instinct over intelligence, right? And in that kind of situation, people ain't trying to make no intelligent decision. They're going straight for instinct. You understand? And that instinct says, you understand that I'm gonna side with the person I know versus this person I don't know. You understand? And not saying that I'm being cold towards the child, but again, I know my wife and my spouse. But then again, I don't know this child yet. I haven't developed the relationship with her. This is why abortion was so popular and is so popular. But and guess what? And abortion itself kind of speaks to the decision we will make. You understand? Because again, the culture of abortion says, well, you know what? I'm going to side with the person I know, be it that mama or yourself, versus the person I don't know. And this is why what makes abortion popular, being that as it may. When it comes to just that in general thing, I mean, instinctively, I think we're all going to go with what's instinctive, more so that survival mentality more than anything else. Because, and I always say this, and this is this line of saying, this is all mine. I always say that men are better at loving women than we are loving children. We know we're conditioned to love women. We know how to do that. You understand? That's why when our families break up, what do? We go looking for another woman. We don't go looking for other children to take care of. We go looking for another woman to establish with and then take care of. And so with that being that as it may, instinctively, I think most people, and I'm not saying I can't speak for all these guys, but I think we're more likely to, just on survival mechanism, to choose out of our instinctive brain versus our intellectual.
Okay, fathers, you out there? What y'all think, man?
I wouldn't disagree with that for a person who had to have an abbreviated conversation. Because remember, with my second child, my daughter, I got that phone call from that doctor. And again, I wasn't far from home. So, and I lived in Myanmar. She was at Pembroke Pines. So we had a abbreviated conversation, but I would concur with Brother Linus with what he said. For me, it was instinctively, right? Because a lot of thoughts went through my mind. Number one, I didn't want to do it by myself. So, I'm like, I can't raise these kids by myself. What I'm going to do with this. So, and so it was a very abbreviated conversation, but it was a no-brainer for me if we had gotten to that point. Which one, and it was my wife over that situation. And it's a tough decision, and no one wants to be in that, but I was there. If I had to do it, it was already a tough thing, I tell you.
Hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
Come on, y'all throw the
Don't be
question
shy,
out there.
bro. Don't be shy.
I know
brother.
I haven't spoke, but
Go ahead, Rod.
this conversation is very enlightening because it brings, I don't have any experience with this whatsoever, but it just has me thinking about so many different avenues and things that women go through, or even men who have experienced, all of these things in life. So it kind of like when you start thinking about it, and one of the brothers was like, oh, I think age plays a big factor in like how people view things. Because when you're younger, man, you just living your life. So whatever happens just happens as a part of it. But as you get older, you start realizing, your ways and things that you could have probably done better, or things that you can do better moving forward in life. So man, this conversation helps a brother out like me, because I'm looking at it from a whole different perspective than I was maybe before I started this conversation.
And Rod, let me say this. I think that this is the part, because now this conversation we have right now, you'll have this conversation with somebody else who's not in this room. You'll be able to enlighten them and say, man, did you ever think a brother come and say, man, oh my God, this lady getting on my nerves, this child. And then you just ask me, hey, y'all checked out postpartum? He said, what? The post of the party? No, postpartum depression. And these are the kind of things that we just don't know, man. We don't know. We're not really having those kind of conversations. We know that Jackson State might have been depressed on the other day when they got that lacking by FAMU, but we don't know about postpartum in the idea of that sense. So I think it's great. I mean, these opportunities are always great for us to have these conversations, and for us to be able to take, because I take this energy and the things I get from fathers and share it when I'm with other fathers. I even share it with other people who just might be saying, I'm sick, I'm tired. How do I figure some of these things out?
J. Rob and Lawrence and Vaughn was on here. But ask the question, they put the question out there again so everybody can understand.
The question was, if you were there having your first child, and the doctor came to you to tell you, hey, you have to make a choice. You got to make a decision right now. One of them are not going to make it. Who are you choosing, and how are you making this decision to choose who's going to stay and who's going to go?
I think for me, when I think about that type of scenario, I'm sure that probably I would choose my wife, but that I would go through the mental gymnastics of loss. But I've suffered loss with my wife before, so I know what that looks like. It may not be that particular situation, so I know kind of what that would look like. In terms of losing her, now with a child, that's the unknown. Now that's fear of the unknown right there, So I think for that reason, I probably would choose my wife as the man.
Mhm.
With that topic, that's always hard because you want to keep both. So being selfish, be like, hey, let me keep both of them. But I'm thinking about it, you want to keep the child because you want your legacy to continue. That's just how, I guess how I'm looking at it. Like, hey, keep that child because that child can branch out and make other children and keep your name intact and keep your family going. Whereas, your wife is just one branch of that tree that eventually it's gonna be gone anyway.
Hey, Rod, you bringing up something that people will be saying very taboo, right? Oh, that's controversial, right? But I would challenge anybody who say that's controversial, right? To ask the wife who she would want to live. See, I'm saying as a father, we getting a choice, and it coming to us to ask us because the mother can't make the decision, the mom can't make the decision. But the question is, what's going to happen if you make the decision to let the baby go, right? And the mom might have been like, "Why did you do that?" And what y'all got to live with after that? This is a no-win situation in any way. I'm not thinking it, but I'm just throwing this curveball into this. Because when you ask mothers, and I as a mother on here, and I probably ask her to verify for us, if it came between themselves and their child's life, what life are they giving up? And I think that
I think you also have to consider the relationship that you happen to be having with your significant other at the time, and I'm sure that. That if the shoe was on the other foot and the lady had to make a choice, if she could only give a kidney or a heart to one person, which one would you choose? If she didn't like that man, she gonna say, well, give me that child. And in many cases, with the way that mothers bond to children, she's probably gonna say, nah, my child gonna live. He's lived his life. So my child is gonna live. So
I think I would have got counted out too. Wait, we would have got voted off the island. We're gonna lose that one every time.
Well, I mean, anybody else? I don't know if Miss Brown Tate can answer that question. If we have, it's so unique. We have a woman on tonight. If there was if you had to make that choice, Miss Tate, who would you be choosing, yourself or your child? And who would you want your husband to choose?
Hey, so I was waiting to get to my car so that I'll be in a quiet spot before I chime in. I'm actually leaving the hospital. But one of the reasons why, and I never joined the Fatherhood Think Tank because I always think it's only for fathers, right? But one of the reasons I joined tonight was because of this topic. And because as a married woman, 20 years old, and my husband was 21, we were in this exact same situation. Got rushed to the hospital, did not realize that I was in preeclampsia, high blood pressure over the roof. They just basically told him I wasn't gonna make it, or the baby wouldn't make it. One of us wouldn't make it. Thank God our son is 26 years old today, and we're still here. But I was incapacitated at the time. So I really had no voice in the decision. The decision was solely his. But he was there with my parents, who were like, you better choose our daughter. But if I would have had any say, I definitely would have asked him to allow my son to live over me. I can wholeheartedly say that. I've been over this 1,000 times throughout the years. Even as I was sick at one point when my son was 3 years old, I started to prepare my husband and my son to live a life without me, whatever that may look like for them, because I thought at one point that I would not make it. So I can wholeheartedly say, guys, if I would have had some say, being a mother laying in that bed, I would have definitely asked him to choose my son. And had he not, and I had to live with the death of my child, there probably would have been some resentment towards him for not honoring my wish. Like I said, my parents were there with him. So he really ain't have a leg in the fight, because they was like, you better save our daughter. These are all the stories I heard after the fact, because I was gone. I couldn't, I wasn't talking to anybody then. But I'm thankful that we both survived and have thriving lives now. But yeah, I would have definitely asked him to save my son over me.
Thank you. That clears up. That clears a big thing up. That and again, that's only one mother's opinion, and that she's not here to speak for all mothers, but we did get an actual opportunity to speak to a mother who at some point she even described that she was in that situation at some point. And I think that here's a great point, what she described in describing her situation is that all the other factors that her husband had to think about at that time. It wasn't just his decision alone. Her parents was there. They was putting pressure probably. And here, I just want, you just have to put this in play. God was given the glory for them, for both her and my young nephew to make it and still be here today. But what we have to think about is what happens to these families when that doesn't happen. Because we can only imagine, the kind of family breakdown that if the nephew would have only been here, and how would her side of the family be able to effectively still be involved in his life in the same capacity, with that resentment that they may both be having about, you let my daughter die. Why did you let my daughter die? I needed my daughter, and versus at this moment, listen, I was thinking about your daughter's legacy as well as mine, because listen, here goes a hypothetical. After the surgery, she wouldn't be able to have any more children. So throw that in there. She had the surgery, this happened, she survived, but now she's not able to have children anymore. And what happened? Well, you didn't say, hey, I'm gonna go adopt. I'm never putting adoption out of because I listened to a lady today say her husband wanted to have 4 kids. She gave him 2 and told him, well, we can adopt 1. If you want another, we can adopt 1 more, but I'm gonna have 2. So those are the kind of scenarios that you have. So they got 3 kids, and as far as they're concerned, they got 3 kids, and it's not even I don't think they even acknowledge the adoption, non-adoption aspect of that, what have you. So I'm really glad that we was able to get that actual mother to share and enlighten us on that, what she would have wanted to happen in her family and her situation if it was a choice. All right, let me get one more father on here. What would be your choice? What would you do if you had to be putting oh, this man gone. See, he must have knew I was gonna call on him. Rohan. He was here. I was about to call on his behind quick as day, but he somehow must have fell out. J. Rod, are you able to say anything? I know you might be in another spot.
Good evening, fellas. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm in a spot where I can actually talk right now. So, listening to the question, for me personally, I think I choose my wife, and I've been in a situation myself where, just like a lot of people, I've experienced having a stillbirth with my wife, and it's not a very pleasant thing. But I think for myself, when I'm looking at the commitment that I've made, right? Because you were talking about being married and living a life together with this person. It's and I lean on the side of what Lightborn was saying, but not exactly. But I think it is it is a fact of I've chosen this person to be with for the rest of my life. I think that, you know, I would choose her, and then we can overcome anything else that comes along. I know that sounds selfish, you know, and a lot of times that, you know, and I do respect what the other father said on here about the legacy and everything, but I think that for me, in my mind, with all the ways that medicine has advanced, where you have surrogacy, you have all these other avenues that you can still have a child with the person that you're with. I wouldn't give that person up, to be honest with you. And that's, again, that's just my opinion, because I always feel that there are avenues that you can take in order to still have a family with this person that you're with, and still live happily. Again, and I respect what the woman had to say who came on, because again, I think a lot of women would say, choose the child over me. But I think as a man, we would say, I'll choose you over the child, and everything else can be worked out.
Great.
You at time, baby.
Yeah, I know that's a really good point that you made there, Gene. I'm glad you came on and said that, because that is an actual another perspective that we, you know, have to really think about. There are some people who are so tight in their relationship with their partner that they will always choose their partner before everybody else. You know, and that's whole saying, F those kids. That you know, there's partners out there they believe that there's only one person who I made commitment to for life and forever, and that's with my partner. And so I think that we look at, you know, and as I'm summing this up, we look at this idea of these things and how these decisions will be made really based on the relationship that the two people in that relationship have and how well they know each other. Because you can always, you know, and I think, as you say, we heard the sister share with us that she would have had a hard time to know that her husband let her live and let their child go on to glory. You know, and you just got to kind of know your partner. You kind of know your person and know how these things operate and what goes down. And with that being said, all right. So any final thoughts, any final statements from anybody before we get ready to shut this down? I want to thank all the new brothers and fathers that came on here: Charles, Aubrey, Roderick, and our old fathers. Oh, and also Nicholas, Nicholson, also Elder Thomas, Lightborn, Bond, J. Rob, Jay, and let me first say this. Let's give our Silver Fox his kudos. His birthday was on over the past couple of days. Lawrence Jordan's birthday. Want to wish him a happy birthday. And I called him. He didn't answer the phone, so I guess he didn't want to talk to me.
I got your message, bro. I got your message.
Happy birthday.
I called him to let him know.
To Lawrence. Happy
called him.
birthday, dear Lawrence. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.
I called him.
You took my title, so since you took my title, my strong man title. Now I know you're trying to show out right now, but that's okay.
Well, and I think that it's so important, because I think I called him yesterday when I realized his birthday. I usually write these birthday messages, but I realized, and I'm going to suggest that you do the same thing. Reach out to people that we know. Don't take it for granted when the time gives an opportunity to reach out to me. Reach out to me. I think is something that is really important, because, you know, from the time that, you know, me and Larry met each other, he's been a fixture in my life and been there at any drop of a dime, of a call, or anything. He has been there, and I really appreciate his friendship and his brotherhood, and just being a mentor for me. So I definitely just want to just celebrate, give him, as they say, give him his flowers for being here.
Thank you. Hey, you know I was just coming for the food though in the groups, right?
Well, listen, hey Larry,
Yes, sir.
hey Larry. Now, this is inside. Listen, just so you know, that's how I started, because I left work from Women in Distress and said, "Oh, they're gonna have food." Because I went to every night. I went to Monday night. I went to Tuesday. I went to Wednesday night, and I went to Thursday night.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was
that
3
food
meals.
was
Listen,
good.
as
That's
a
a good
bachelor,
food, man.
as a
Good
bachelor, that
food,
was
good
3
food.
meals at
Yeah.
night, that and I had food to take home. So
Uh-huh.
listen, sometimes food get us in a place and make us right. That's what I say. Food can sometimes make us right.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. So with that being said, gentlemen, I will thank everybody for joining us tonight. And Father, just repeat after me. I am.
I am.
I know. Come on, Father. I say I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I
I
am
am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship
Fathers.
And just for the new fathers here, so you know,
Okay.
just for the
Yeah.
new fathers here, you know,
It's the
we do
Bahama
this
shirt. It's the Bahama
right.
shirt.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. And new fathers, we do this chant after every group just to, so we
right.
can leave on one accord together.
Yes.
as championship fathers. When you see us doing our muscles, it's not our muscles. We holding our kids up on our arms in the world, and our families on our shoulders. And so we do that just to symbolize that. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you want to go into more deep conversation, Fathers Only meeting is tomorrow night, same time, same Zoom meeting. We will continue some of this conversation. I know it will be a little bit more intimate, because it's the Fathers Only meeting. Would be, probably, keep, we can let our hair down a little bit. How we're gonna really talk. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. If not, we'll see you again here next week on the Fatherhood Think Tank. Thanks everybody for joining us, and good night.
All right, y'all be blessed.
All right, good night,
Be
fellas.
blessed. Take care. God bless.